I mean, it's a tricky question. Supplying motive in a crime novel very often just comes down to, you know, follow the money or chercher la femme, since we're being French. You know, look for sex, look for money, whatever it is. And it's a more interesting motive. Tart did it very well. There's an author you may know named Christopher Fowler, a British author.
Oh, yeah.
And his new book, The 10-Second Staircase, actually flirts with this same premise. However, that is not going to be the premise of a whole series, and you are actually envisioning seven books anyway,
correct,
where Enzo McLeod will be. And so how does he get into this sequence, of
well,
which Extraordinary People is book one?
Is the first one. It begins at the beginning of the first book. He has a dinner party at his home, and somebody brings along a book which has been written by a Parisian journalist, Roger Raffin.
Roger Raffin.
Roger Raffin.
Such a great name.
I love the name.
Oh, do you? Sounds ruffinly. There's one reason I think it works.
Well, he's named after two friends of mine. One's called Roger Aucoin, the other one's called Gilbert Raffin. So I put the two together, so it's Roger Raffin.
Got it.
And he's written a book outlining the details of the 7 most notorious unsolved crimes in recent French history.
Cold cases, in other words.
Cold cases, yeah. He's brought, no, he hasn't brought, but somebody has brought this book along to a dinner party that Enzo is holding. Although he's given up practicing forensic science, he's kept up to date with the science. And after a glass or 3 of wine, he gets involved in a foolish bet and says, well, I could use this latest science to solve these cases without a problem. And of course he's taken on a bet which he can't really afford to lose, so he gets embroiled in certainly tackling the first of those cases.
And so the first case, in fact, is the mysterious, never-solved disappearance of Jacques Gaillard.
That's right. He is an énarque. Another interesting thing about ENA, the actual Grand École, is that they have no teaching staff. That all the professors who teach there are people, well, they're almost all exclusively former pupils who have gone on to achieve greatness in life and then give 18 months to 2 years of their time to go back and teach the next generation of students. And that's how it functions. And so he has been a top civil servant, Jacques Gaillard. He's been advisor to the Prime Minister. And he has just completed an 18-month stint as a professor at ENA. And the French have a holiday, a vacation month, the month of August, and everything stops in France. And the rentrée is what they call it when everybody starts back to work on the 1st of September. And at the rentrée, Jacques Gaillard has vanished, just vanished off the face of the earth. No trace of him anywhere in his apartment, in his office. No sign of foul play. He's just disappeared. And that, at the time, created a huge scandal. This is 10 years ago. It created a huge scandal. And it was occupied the press and the media for months. But with all these things, of course, eventually it starts to die down and recede and disappear. And 10 years on, you know, a lot of people don't even remember anything about Jacques Gaillard. But the fact remains that he disappeared, suspected that he's dead, but nobody knows for sure, and it remains unsolved to this day. So,
Enzo, having made this foolish bet, and since he is not practicing at the top of his forensic profession, he's not a wealthy man, so here he is needing to win the bet, and he comes from Cahors to Paris, and then the whole thing gets underway. Now that's when the Dan Brown part kicks in. And Dan, I said that because really the Da Vinci Code is a quest novel, which is a classic form of literature. It's basically, you know, somebody going off on a quest to achieve, you know, a journey to find answers or find the Holy Grail or win the fair maid or whatever the heck it is. Enzo, in this case, is trying to find what happened to Jacques Gaillard. And how did you, because you're forced as the author then to set up this quest and to move him from point to point in the quest in the same way that the symbologist in the Da Vinci Code, you know, gets a group of clues and says, aha, and then that propels him to the next place and on and on. How did you set up the puzzle?
Well, it's interesting because I think it's very easy for the author to invent the clues and come up with the answers and imbue his character with this genius, this intelligence that can solve them like that. Where you, the reader, are looking at these clues and think, well, that's crazy, I could never solve that in a million years, which I think is very much the case with Da Vinci Code. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to set up clues that, you know, if anybody reading the book so desired, they could apply their thinking and their intelligence to the solving of them themselves and arrive at the correct conclusion. The difficult thing was how to create those clues and the answers and ensure that, you know, that could be done. So the way I did it was, my wife, Janice, who is also a writer,
and also Scottish, which is
and
why
also
I said way
Scottish,
back
yes.
at the beginning you didn't go off to live with a French woman
Yeah.
in France, right?
I call her Miss 167 because that's her IQ.
Wow.
I have to tell you, I don't know what my IQ is. I never took the test, or if I did, it was when I was really young and I had no idea what it came out at. And I certainly wouldn't take it now, because if it came out less than 167, I'd never hear the end of it. But I know my dad was 168, so, you know, I can keep her guessing about that. But anyway, I told her, I outlined the basic shape of the book that I wanted to follow and asked her to come up with the clues for me. And these are groups of clues which are found together in various locations, and they are just objects, apparently unrelated things. I mean, I didn't even know that's what they were going to be, because I sent her off to dream up these clues, and these clues would lead to a certain place, possibly come up with a name, and so she presented me with, in the end, 4 sets of clues, which she'd spent days and days and days cooking up, searching the internet. So I then spent days and days and days trying to crack them. I mean, the first set of clues included such miscellaneous objects as a scallop shell, a golden bee pendant, a stethoscope, an antique stethoscope, things like that, and that seemed to have absolutely no relation, and yet somehow they were a message of some kind that it would be possible to unravel. And I'm happy to say that I did unravel her 167 clues, but I took meticulous notes as I was going through all my thought processes. I noted all the blind alleys I went up, all the possibilities that I explored, so that I had then at my disposal the entire rationale, the entire way that Enzo would have approached the solving of these clues, because it's the way I did it. And it also meant that I knew it could be done.
Right. Well, it certainly lends an authenticity to it, and it's a lot of fun for the reader. But we should say that the clues are found. The first set, anyway, is found in a, what was it, a metal chest?
Yes, in
the catacombs in Paris. So,
yes.
you know, it isn't that they, I mean, you did have to group them anyway,
oh,
or it
yes,
wouldn't have been fair at all.
No, no.
But I did think it was fascinating. It gives you a chance to tell us a lot of French history, move us around parts of France, get Enzo into trouble, all those good things, which is very much what happened to the symbologists in the Da Vinci Code. And there's a really splendid book by Peter Watson called Landscape of Lies, I might have mentioned to you. He was, I think, an art critic and very instrumental in the Sotheby. I think he was the guy that wrote the book about, you know, the Sotheby scandal and whatever. But he wrote a book in which a painting provides all of it's a cross between you and Dan Brown in the sense there's a Tudor painting and everything in it is symbolic. And the quest in that book is to find a hidden Tudor treasure from the days when the monasteries were dissolved. But the painting is the treasure map, and in order to do it, you have to interpret correctly every single bit of the painting, and it's just completely fascinating. He has to go back into the medieval mind.
Great fun.
Which is, it is. And the book comes with the painting, so that you, the reader, you know, can keep, you can get a headache, you know, referring to it. So it isn't that this sort of thing isn't done, but it's wonderful to see it done as well as you did it in Extraordinary People.